Hello, I am Sinner, and I'm doing a review of the Nicomachean Ethics, Book 1, which is called, I think, The Object of Life. Yes. And I finished reading it today. It's quite difficult for me because I don't really know any metaphysics. I'm not at all versed in metaphysics. I read one uh, summary of Scotus's metaphysics, and it all went over my head, and I don't really get what's going on. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. It's very interesting. He has some very weird ideas, like that sort of ethics is political science, or like the study of morality is actually a political science thing, which I wasn't expecting. Um, and I also wasn't expecting the refutation of Plato's universal forms and like how that ties into morality, but I suppose it would. I don't know much about Plato either. I'm one day going to buy the Republic and read that, but I don't know much about Plato. Um, yeah, it's an interesting book. He seems to talk about this idea of things having a end, right? And that end being the, he uses the term final. I guess you could say final cause as well. But this idea of an end actually being what makes something um, moral, right? So like, there's this idea that what's right for man is to follow what's the end of man, and the end of something is like this concept of that which fits the nature of the thing or something like that is how I would describe it. Um, I heard an analogy for it, which I think works really well, which is that like sort of the end of a heart, its final cause, so to speak, is that it's meant to pump blood. And a heart that pumps blood well is a good heart, and a heart that pumps blood poorly is a bad heart. And he sort of like um, talks about it in a very casual way, like all the philosophy. I wasn't expecting him to be so casual and to have so many um, tangents. The tangents was crazy. I I wasn't expecting that type of writing. Um, yeah, he sort of like at one point dabbles with this idea that there's these three different um, views of he first says that happiness is sort of the end or the purpose of life, right? The object of life. But then he sort of goes about defining it in a way that's very, very weird. And he compares it to like pleasure and public honor, right? But he also ties in public honor with like fortune, you could say, like financial well-being and that sort of stuff. Um, and he sort of doesn't, he refutes, he says like he refutes those other two ways, and um, it seems that the three ways you can live are searching for enjoyment or pleasure, a political life, which would be the public honor, and then the contemplative life, which would be the uh, the philosopher's way, I guess. But then it seems that he contemplates about that, but he comes to this. He talks about the soul, and he talks about the fact that there's like these three types of beings. There's a sensible being, there's a rational being, and there's a vegetative being. Oh, he says souls. He calls them souls, and I suppose that means that like it's the soul that sustains life, right? So it's the soul that makes these things the things in themselves. Um, but yeah, the he makes this argument that basically because one, he makes the argument that the object of human life is something in and of itself, right? And that's happiness, because happiness is like a final cause, right? It's a first principle, right? So, and this idea of first principle is weird to me as well. It's like, or new to me. I shouldn't say weird. I think it's quite novel. It's like some things are means to an end, right? Like money is a means to an end. It's just something that gives you the capability to do other things, right? But if something is an end in and of itself, then it's a final cause. It's something that's like completely satisfying. It's something that um, is self-justifying, and that's what he defines as happiness. But then he says that happiness is a virtuous activity of the soul, right? Which is not what you would expect, right? Like I wouldn't if you were to ask me, hey, what do you think happiness is? I would not jump to, oh, it's a virtuous activity of the soul, of course. But yeah, I think I kind of agree with him based off what I've read and what I can understand. Because yeah, he says that the function of man is an activity of the soul in accordance with or implying a rational principle. If we hold the function of an individual, of a good individual, the same kind, e.g. a harpist and a good harpist and so on, generally is generically the same, the latter's distinctive excellence being attached to the name of the function, in brackets, because the function of the harpist is to play the harp, but that of the good harpist is to play it well. And if we assume that the function of man is a kind of life, namely an activity or a series of actions of the soul, implying a rational principle, the function of a good man is to perform these well and rightly. If every function is performed well, when performed in accordance with its proper excellence, if all this is so, the conclusion is that the good for man is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue, or if there are more kinds of virtue than one, in accordance with the best and most perfect kind. And yeah, he comes to that conclusion in a very weird way, but it's very interesting. It makes me want to read more, and um, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say really. It's a very good. It's very difficult. I'm excited to read more. Yeah, I'm Sinner, and thank you for listening.